Episode 12. The Impossible Alliance. The galaxy was learning a lesson it had spent 10,000 years trying to ignore. Hatred was easy, survival was difficult. Across 1,000,000 worlds, the old certainties were beginning to fail. The Imperium was no longer strong enough to stand alone. The Eldar were no longer wise enough to see every path. The Necrons were no longer ancient enough to remember a solution. The Tyranids had stripped away every illusion. Now only reality remained, and reality was hungry. Far above Terra, thousands of ships crowded the void. Warships, transports, pilgrim vessels, entire fleets arriving daily. The throne world had become the heart of the galaxy once more. Not because of conquest, because everyone was waiting for answers. Unfortunately, answers were in short supply. Deep within the Imperial Palace, Robot Guilliman walked alone. The halls were silent, not truly silent. Nothing on Terra was ever silent. Somewhere distant, choirs sang hymns. Servitors marched through ancient corridors. Pilgrims whispered prayers to a god they would never see. But compared to the battlefield, it felt silent. Guilliman passed beneath colossal statues. His father's face watched him from every direction. The Emperor triumphant, the Emperor victorious, the Emperor eternal. 1,000 versions of the same man, 1,000 reminders. The Lord Commander slowed his pace. For a moment he stopped beneath one particularly massive monument. The Emperor stood with one hand outstretched toward the stars. The sculptor had captured certainty perfectly. Guilliman stared at it, then he looked away. A young officer approached. The man immediately dropped to one knee. "My lord?" Guilliman suppressed a sigh. "Rise!" The officer obeyed, nervous, as they all were. "The delegations have arrived." Guilliman nodded. "The people are encouraged by your presence, Lord Regent." The officer meant it as a compliment. Guilliman knew that. He glanced back toward the statue. "No." The officer looked confused. Guilliman's eyes lingered on the Emperor's stone face. They're encouraged by his. The officer had no answer. Neither did Guilliman. He continued walking. Duty waited. It always did. The council chamber lay deep within the palace, protected by enough defences to withstand a planetary invasion. Even so, many believed the gathering was doomed before it began, because armies were simple, politics was not. Guilliman entered first. Dawn was already waiting. Of course he was. The Praetorian stood beside a tactical display showing the galactic rim. Thousands of red markers covered the map. Everyone represented a Tyranid incursion. Dawn did not look away from it. They're advancing faster. No greeting, no pleasantries, straight to the problem. Guilliman felt strangely grateful. Yes? The projections? Worse than yesterday. Dawn folded his arms. For several moments, neither brother spoke. They did not need to. Both understood exactly what the numbers meant. Worlds would die. The only question was how many. The chamber doors opened. Every conversation ended immediately. The Silent King entered. Ancient machinery glided across polished stone. His presence transformed the room. Not through intimidation, through age. He carried 60 million years of history with him. Compared to that, even Primarchs seemed young. The Silent King studied the chamber, then the brothers, then the map. His gaze lingered on the Tyranid markers. For the first time, Guilliman thought he detected something unusual. Not fear, not concern, recognition. The Silent King moved to the central platform. No guards accompanied him, no advisors, no ceremony, just a ruler, one who had buried entire civilizations. The first projection flickered to life, then another. Eldar, craftworld representatives, far-seers, ancient figures appearing as shimmering ghosts above the council floor. No greetings were exchanged, no one bothered pretending this was a friendly gathering. The silence itself felt sharp. Eventually the Silent King broke it. "You summoned us." His voice echoed through the chamber, not loud, merely impossible to ignore. Guilliman stepped forward. "I did." The Silent King looked around the room, at humans, at Eldar, at old enemies, then back to Guilliman. "You ask us to save your civilization." Several Imperial officers visibly stiffened. Guilliman remained calm. "No." The response surprised everyone. Even Dawn glanced toward him. Guilliman continued, "I ask you to save yours." Silence followed, not the comfortable kind, the thoughtful kind, the kind that arrives when somebody says something nobody can easily refute. The Eldar exchanged glances. The Silent King said nothing, but neither disagreed, because the Tyranids threatened all of them. For once, reality was simple. The arguments began shortly afterward. Not shouting, not accusations, something worse, politeness. The Eldar questioned Imperial strategy. The Imperium questioned Eldar motives. The Silent King questioned everyone. Every sentence sounded civil. Every sentence carried centuries of resentment. Hours passed. Nothing was resolved. The alliance existed only on paper. Trust remained absent. Outside the chamber, war continued. At the edge of the galaxy, an ocean of green crossed the stars. Ghazghkull's Waaagh had grown beyond comprehension. Entire systems moved beneath his banner. Attack moons drifted through the void like artificial planets. Millions of vessels travelled together. The largest gathering of orcs in galactic history. A lesser warlord would have celebrated. Ghazghkull did not. He stood upon the hull of a colossal battle fortress, staring toward the darkness ahead. The stars grew thinner there, the void deeper, somewhere beyond it. The enemy waited. A massive orc warboss approached, scarred, ancient, dangerous, one of the few beings alive willing to speak plainly to Ghazghkull. "The lads are ready." Ghazghkull nodded. The warboss grinned. "Biggest fight ever." For a long moment, Ghazghkull remained silent. Then he finally answered, "No." The warboss frowned. Ghazghkull continued staring into the darkness. "The last one." For the first time, the warboss had no reply. Back on Terra, the council continued. Old enemies searching desperately for a future. At the galactic rim, the greatest army ever assembled marched toward oblivion. And somewhere beyond the stars, something vast had begun to pay attention. Beyond the galactic rim, there were no empires, no borders, no history, only darkness, an emptiness so vast that even the stars seemed insignificant within it. Russ stood upon a ridge of living stone and watched the void. Somewhere out there, the greatest predator in existence was moving, not toward a world, not toward a sector, toward an idea, toward an ancient enemy. For weeks, he had travelled through the sanctuary of the Exile, a civilization preserved within memory, a monument to a people who no longer existed. Everywhere he looked, he saw evidence of loss. Not destruction, absence, as though someone had carefully removed an entire species from history. The Exile appeared beside him. Not physically, a shape formed from light and memory. The same form it always chose, neither male nor female, neither young nor old, simply familiar. Russ had begun to suspect that was intentional. "You've been avoiding me." The accusation came without warning. The Exile seemed surprised. "Avoiding? Every time I ask about the war, you answer." Russ folded his arms. "Every time I ask about yourself, you disappear." For a moment, neither spoke. The Exile turned its gaze toward the darkness. "I did not realize you cared." Russ almost laughed. "There it is." "What?" "That." Russ stepped closer. "You talk like the war matters more than the people fighting it." The Exile said nothing. And that silence was answer enough. Russ shook his head. I've known warriors like you. The exile looked at him. Russ continued. The ones who survived too long. The words landed. He could see it. For the first time since arriving, the ancient intelligence looked genuinely uncomfortable. Tell me something. Russ pointed toward the endless darkness. You want me to fight for freedom? Yes. You want humanity to survive? Yes. You want the Hive Mind stopped? Yes. Russ stared directly into its eyes. Then why did you hide? The sanctuary became silent, not dramatically, naturally, as though even the living structures around them were waiting for an answer. The exile looked away, and for the first time, it struggled. Not because it lacked knowledge, because it lacked certainty. Millions of years of memory, millions of years of wisdom, millions of years of regret. Yet this question wounded it more than any battle. Finally it spoke. Because I lost faith. Russ hadn't expected honesty. The answer struck harder than any explanation could have. The exile continued. I watched galaxies die. Images flashed across Russ's mind. Not battlefields, funeral worlds, dead civilizations, silent cities orbiting silent suns, millions of years of failure. I watched species choose freedom and use it to destroy themselves. More memories, civil wars, genocides, empires collapsing beneath their own ambition. I watched them repeat the same mistakes. The exile's voice grew quieter. Again, and again, and again. Russ listened, because for the first time he wasn't hearing history, he was hearing grief. The grief of someone who had witnessed too much. Eventually, the exile paused. I began wondering if the Hive Mind had been right. That admission shocked him, not because it was impossible, because it was understandable. The exile turned toward him. Do you know what certainty offers? Russ remained silent. Rest. The answer lingered between them. No doubt, no fear, no responsibility, no guilt. Russ thought of the Imperium, of endless wars, endless suffering, endless sacrifice. He could see the temptation, and that frightened him, because the Hive Mind's argument was not madness. It was seduction, the promise that all pain could end, if only choice ended with it. Russ looked back into the darkness, then shook his head. That's not life. The exile studied him. That's surrender. For a long time, neither spoke. And then something changed. Far below, deep within the sanctuary, ancient structures awakened. Great spires of living matter shifted. The ground trembled, not violently, like an animal sensing a storm. The exile immediately became alert. Its attention moved elsewhere, towards something distant, something approaching. Russ felt it a moment later. A pressure, immense, cold, intelligent, the Hive Mind. Not its fleets, not its armies, its awareness, the vast consciousness lurking behind every swarm. For the briefest moment, Russ sensed it. The scale was incomprehensible. Not hatred, not rage, calculation. The feeling vanished instantly, yet it left him shaken. The exile remained motionless, watching, listening. Then it spoke. It is changing. What is? The Hive Mind. Russ frowned. It always changes. Not like this. For the first time, genuine concern entered its voice. It is no longer preparing for conquest. It is preparing for opposition. Those words settled heavily between them because they meant something terrible. The Hive Mind had noticed them, not humanity, not the Imperium, not the Eldar, the Exile. The ancient war was beginning again. Elsewhere, far from Terra and far from the sanctuary, another observer watched the stars. A demon world drifted within the warp. Upon a black cliff overlooking impossible horizons stood an ancient prince of chaos. It watched reality through a wound in space. A Tyranid invasion moved across a distant sector. Worlds burned, billions died. Normally such slaughter would have filled the warp, fed it, strengthened it. Instead, there was less. The prince narrowed its eyes. Something was wrong. Where the Tyranids passed, the echoes felt weaker, quieter, like a feast leaving behind no bones, no soul, no memory, no residue. For the first time in a very long time, the creature felt curiosity. And curiosity, among the powers of chaos, was often the first step toward catastrophe. Back within the sanctuary, Russ stood beside the Exile. Together, they stared into the darkness beyond the stars. The Hive Mind was coming. Not tomorrow, not next year, soon. And for the first time in millions of years, the Exile did not look away. The first victory came from the Orcs. No one expected it. For decades, every report concerning the Tyranids followed the same pattern. A world under attack, a desperate defense, a final transmission. Silence. The details changed. The ending never did. Then the reports from the galactic rim began arriving. At first, Imperial commanders assumed they were incorrect. Entire Tyranid fleets destroyed. Bioships drifting lifeless through space. Synapse networks collapsing. Hive tendrils retreating. The data made no sense until the pick captures arrived. Then everyone understood the Waaagh had found the enemy, and the enemy had discovered what it meant to fight orcs on a scale never seen before. Across entire systems, green tides crashed into Tyranid swarms. Attack moons rammed hive fleets. Battle hulks erupted from warp translations directly inside Tyranid formations. Millions died, then millions more. The void itself became a graveyard. On the command deck of his fortress, Ghazghkull watched the battle unfold. The stars ahead burned with war. Around him, war bosses celebrated, roared, boasted. They believed they were witnessing the beginning of a great conquest. Ghazghkull knew better. A tactical projection floated before him. The first Tyranid fleet had been shattered, the second badly damaged, the third forced to withdraw. Victories, real victories. Yet something troubled him. The Tyranids were changing, not retreating, learning. Every engagement revealed new organisms, new tactics, new adaptations. The enemy was measuring them, studying them, preparing. Ghazghkull stared at the data for several moments, then quietly spoke. "Send every report." The war boss beside him blinked. "To who?" "Everyone." The war boss frowned. "Humies too, especially de-humies." The war boss looked horrified. Ghazghkull didn't explain it because he wasn't interested in being understood, only in being right. Far away on Terra, those reports arrived, and for the first time in years, hope entered the council chamber. Not optimism, hope. The distinction mattered. The Eldar studied the battle recordings. The Silent King examined casualty projections. Imperial commanders recalculated strategic forecasts. The numbers remained terrible, but they were no longer impossible. The Tyranids could bleed. That changed everything, or so it seemed. Hours later, the arguments resumed. The Eldar wanted resources redirected. The Imperium refused. The Necrons demanded operational authority over several sectors. Dawn rejected the proposal immediately. The discussions deteriorated, not into violence, into frustration. Guilliman spent hours moving between positions, mediating, negotiating, trying to hold together something that clearly did not want to exist. Eventually, the chamber emptied. One by one, the delegates departed, leaving only Guilliman and Dawn. The silence between brothers lasted several minutes. Finally, Dawn spoke. "You're giving away too much." Guilliman didn't look up from the reports covering the table. "What would you suggest?" "The same thing I've always suggested." Guilliman almost smiled. "That isn't an answer." "It is." Dawn stepped forward. "We hold. Guilliman finally looked up, the exhaustion in his eyes surprised even Dawn. "We are holding." "No." Dawn shook his head. "We're compromising." The argument wasn't new. It had existed between them for centuries. Duty against pragmatism. Principle against necessity. Guilliman stood. 12 years ago, I could hold a line. His voice remained calm, measured, controlled, which somehow made it more powerful. Today, I'm trying to hold a galaxy. Dawn had no immediate reply, because for once, neither brother was wrong. Elsewhere, another intelligence studied the war. Not from a command deck, not from a throne, from within the Hive Mind itself. It observed every battle, every loss, every adaptation, every mistake. And now, something new observed alongside it. A second consciousness, freshly created, purpose-built. It watched Ghazghkull's victories, examined battle recordings, studied orc psychology, evaluated Imperial responses, calculated future outcomes. The Hive Mind had created many weapons, many commanders, many monsters. This was different, this one thought. And as it watched the orcs fighting, it reached a conclusion. Destroying them would be inefficient. Breaking them would be better. Far beneath the Imperial Palace, Guilliman worked alone. The council had ended. The reports had not. Worlds still required reinforcement. Refugees still needed relocation. Supply chains still needed rebuilding. Every victory generated another 1,000 problems. The burden never lessened, only changed shape. Hours passed, perhaps days. Time blurred, then something shifted, not outside, inside. The room felt different still. Guilliman slowly lowered the document in his hands. He already knew. Before the sensation fully arrived, before the impossible became real, his father, not a voice and not an image, a presence, vast beyond comprehension, ancient, tired, yet somehow still enduring. For a brief moment, Guilliman was not the Lord Commander, not the Regent, not the saviour of the Imperium, only a son, waiting, hoping. The silence stretched, then the Emperor spoke. 4 words, nothing more. The cost will be everything. The presence vanished instantly, leaving only silence. Guilliman remained motionless. He had spent centuries wishing for guidance, for certainty, for answers. Instead, he received a warning, and somehow that felt perfectly fitting. Slowly, he sat down. The reports still covered the table. The war still waited. Duty still remained. Outside, Terra continued as though nothing had happened. Yet Guilliman found himself staring into the darkness, not thinking about victory, thinking about cost, and wondering whether anyone truly understood what was coming. At the edge of the galactic rim, a damaged Tyranid fleet drifted through the void. The remnants of Ghazghkull's first great victory. Thousands of dead organisms floated among shattered bioships, evidence that the Devourer could be wounded. Deep within the wreckage, a surviving synapse creature twitched, then froze. A new presence entered its mind. Not the Hive Mind, something smaller, sharper, more focused. The newly born intelligence. It looked through the creature's eyes, examined the battlefield, examined the dead, examined the orcs. For several moments it simply observed. Then, for the first time, it made a decision entirely on its own. A signal spread through the surviving fleet. Not a command to advance, not a command to feed, a command to learn. And somewhere in the darkness, beyond the stars, the next stage of the war began.